Welcome in to the Weather Wednesday podcast here at New England Storm Center. So it looks like a coastal storm is headed for New England. This coastal storm is being set up by two energy pieces. You have one over the Rockies and you have one over the Great Lakes. Now the low pressure system over the Rockies is going to dive southward as it works east. This is because of a big trough in the jet stream over the east coast, which is being set up by an omega block. We'll talk about that a bit later in the podcast episode. But it is going to dive south. It is then going to move offshore around, in the southeast, probably offshore by Georgia. It's then going to work up the coast, and we are likely looking at a coastal storm coming to New England. Of course, late April, it will be a rainstorm through and through everywhere. So we don't have to worry about snow and rain-snow mixes and freezing rain and sleet and deciphering all that. Hopefully we're done with that for the season now. But, yep, it'll be a another soaking rain, similar to what we had this past Sunday. It looks like there could be 1 to 2 inches. It could be a long, drawn-out storm, a long-duration storm. We could start seeing the effects as early as Saturday evening and running all the way through Monday evening. So again, it will likely be a widespread soaking for New England. And being a coastal storm, there could be some pretty gusty winds as well. At this point, it doesn't look like, it'll be, a really intense storm with damaging winds. It's not looking like that right now. The wind threat will be something that we'll have to watch for the rest of the week, but I don't anticipate too big of issues being caused by the wind at this time. So it does look like the storm will enter. Well, right now, it's forecast to go inland, pass over the center of the storm to pass over Long Island and then into western Connecticut and western Massachusetts. I would not be surprised if, over the course of this week, that track shifts it further east, closer toward Cape Cod, running over Cape Cod instead of over western Connecticut. But that is just me. We'll see what the forecast does. So New England is in a cool pattern. It's in a pretty typical pattern for April for New England. It can be a frustrating pattern a lot of times in April. This time it's not so bad. So we have a stalled out frontal boundary over us. And when that happens, you can get the same weather day after day after day, sometimes week after week. And a lot of times it's, really cool, overcast all the time, showery. As anyone living here knows, that's not how it's been this week, and that's not how it was supposed to be this week. It is, mostly cloudy. We do get the sun. There are occasional light showers, and we are only slightly below average to even seasonable. So, not as frustrating right now, but it certainly can be with this stalled frontal boundary combined with an omega block with a high pressure over eastern Canada is causing a big trough in the jet stream. We just talked about that. That is going to lead to persistent cool weather. Again, not looking cold, but cool. The NOAA's 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks both favoring below average temperatures for New England and for the entire eastern United States because of this trough. So this omega block, and to be honest, this omega block and stalled out frontal boundaries here in the springtime, with all honesty, are my least favorite weather pattern to deal with in New England. For the reasons I said before, it can be very frustrating here at the end of April, going into May. We're stuck in the 40s and 50s. It's cloudy, it's showery. Again, hasn't been so bad with the pops of sun and the fact that we are getting into the upper 50s, lower 60s. But, there have been times in the past, particularly 2019 was a rather frustrating year where it was just so cold, so cloudy, so showery the whole time. And, these patterns, they're very stubborn. They can stick around for weeks at a time. And This Omega block does look like it's going to break down at the end of this week, but as quickly as it breaks down, another one is going to take its place for next week. So next week we will likely have a very similar week to this week. Again, that's early on, so will it be cloudier, showerier, cooler, or will it be more like this week where we have some sun and more seasonable temperatures? We will have to wait and see exactly what happens after the storm passes. Confidence in the forecast after this upcoming coastal storm that's going to come through Sunday and Monday, confidence really drops off in the forecast. So again, we'll have to see what happens with the Omega blocking and stalled frontal boundaries as we get into next week. So on the resort roundup, we are really coming down to it. We are down to our final 4 resorts. Killington, Jay Peak, Sugarbush, and Sugarloaf are our final ski resorts that are still skiing and riding into late April. My update that I put on the resort roundup tab at NewEnglandStormCenter.com was very short because as we get down to it, there's not a whole lot to really say anymore, except for these final resorts are just going to hold on for dear life and keep on trucking until they simply can't ski on the snow anymore. So I picked, I forget if it was last week's episode or 2 weeks ago, that I picked Jay Peak in Vermont to be the second to last open. That was my prediction. Again, of course, we all know Killington will be open the latest, so my second to latest resort. I picked Jay Peak previously. I am not gonna lie, I am being very tempted to switch that to Sugarloaf in Maine. Sugarloaf in Maine, they tend to push on pretty late into the season, and they're going to be going into May this year. And I would not be surprised if they beat out Jay Peak and Sugarbush in Vermont. I believe Sugarbush is planning on having their closing weekend this upcoming weekend, which will leave Killington, Jay, and Sugarloaf open for May skiing in all likelihood. So I guess because I picked Jay, I'll stick with Jay until the very end, until they close. But I would not be surprised one bit if it was Sugarloaf in Maine that made it second to last. All right, so that is going to do it for this episode of the Weather Wednesday podcast here at New England Storm Center. A bit of a shorter episode, but that is what's happening this week. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Keep it right here. Keep it at NewEnglandStormCenter.com, and you will hear from me again next Wednesday.